I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, November the 22nd, brought to you in part by Witex Corporation. The Witex Corporation provides excellence in animal health, including all-American identification tags of any kind for all classes of livestock. For more information, go to y-tex.com. Boy, did they have a barn burner in Joplin on Monday. Actually, not in Joplin, it's in Carthage, Missouri, right on I-44, but it's Joplin Regional Stockyards. And one of the most impressive and prestigious feeder cattle auctions that they've had for quite a while. Everything was right. They had 12,000 head on offer. They had 150 straight loads of yearlings in a time that there's no yearlings. And they had 150 pot loads of them. The timing was perfect, coming in on a Monday right after a bullish cattle on feed report when our numbers are tight. People are wanting cattle, and your feedlots showed up, and it's the performance-based feedlots. You know, we've got a lot of different people out there that feed cattle. Some people want to feed pretty cattle. Some people want to feed ugly cattle that have a better chance of making money and don't have quite as much input costs and don't cost as much up front. Some people want to feed program cattle. Some people just let the packers tell them what to feed, and all they do is put the feed in and do the work for them. But I'm talking about performance feedlots that know how much more important it is to feed a yearling than it is a big fat calf. This time of year, most of your farmer feeders, they're just happy feeding big fat calves. And a lot of your big high volume feedlots, they just have to go with big fat calves too. The heck of it is, big fat calves do not convert near as well. They don't gain near as well. They don't grade as well whenever you get done feeding them. Sure, they're pretty to look at, and I don't care if they're weaned 60 days, I don't care if they're weaned 90 days, I don't care if they're weaned 120 days, they won't gain like a yearling will. And the yearling can be ugly, and they don't all have to be the same color, but the yearlings feed better. That's why you see people losing their mind in the midsummer whenever we see all those green grass yearlings coming off the Flint Hill region. I always talk about them. Then a little bit later in the summer we see them coming off up there in the sand hills in Nebraska, and it's just unbelievable what they'll bring. It really doesn't matter where those yearlings come from, and then they sure don't have to be home raised together. I mean, sure, that's great if they are, but if it's just cattle that have been together for a long time, they don't even remember what their mother looked like. They were sent somewhere else, put together with some cattle, processed similarly, turned out together, and been together, running on strictly grass for the most part. I realize you get into the fall, and especially as short as grass was, sometimes you have to feed them a little bit on the grass. But for the most part, those yearlings that they had in Joplin on Monday, those 150 pot loads of them, they were mostly grass yearlings. I mean, they may have been giving them a pound 100 or something like that, a little bit of supplemental feeding to go on there, but they weren't heavily backgrounded, and they'd been turned out, and it's just something that you can't find this time of year. Well, they had a bunch of them in there, and man, did they sell. I'm going to give you the quotes here towards the end of the report like I always do, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of a setup here for the markets that I'm going to give you out of Joplin towards the end of this report. But Joplin was where it was at on Monday, and I know you guys are going to say, oh, Corbett, the only reason you're talking about Joplin is because you've known all those guys, Jackie and Skylar and Bailey and Mark Harmon and everybody, right? You've known them all for 20 some years. You've been friends with them for a long time. They use DV auction to broadcast their sale barn on all their regular sales. They use DV auction with their primetime livestock video. They advertise with you on the feeder flash. That's the only reason you're talking this sale up that they had on Monday. That's exactly right. That's how the world goes round. See how that works? You look at anybody else that has a medium like this, they've got their favorites too, and Joplin's one of our favorites. They do a lot of business with us. We respect them, and they do a good job. But I tell you what, when I get done telling you the quotes on these cattle, and they're not fancy cattle per se. There would be some in there that would be considered, pretty top cattle. But for the most part, at Joplin Regional Stockyards, they market commodity type cattle. Now, maybe those commodity type cattle are mostly black, or maybe they're all black, but they're still mostly all put together type cattle. You don't see that many home-raised deals selling in there. Now, whenever they do have those stick-out deals, they can bring the big price in there. But, you're not going to sell 400,000 cattle a year through a ring, and they're all going to be, knock your eyes out fancy. That's just a part of the country where they market a lot of feeder cattle, and when you have a lot of fescue in and around you, that's going to be a good place to have a sale barn, because it keeps cattle moving all the time. The cattle do well a couple of times a year on that fescue. Then there's times where you need to get them off there. You need to get it clipped. You have to manage that fescue. But tell you what, when I started learning about fescue and grass, I didn't cuss it, because I always lived in places that didn't have any grass. So yeah, they got endophytes, they got problems like that. It's not that big a deal. You just got to manage it, guys. But a lot of your big sales, had a good sale in Oklahoma City too. A lot of your big feeder cattle auctions further into the week here, as we get towards closer to Thanksgiving Thursday, are going to be closed. We'll tell you about a couple of special sales that are annually, some big sales that they have, right in and around Thanksgiving, that you can watch on dvauction.com, and you can view and bid on those cattle too. One of them is Green City Livestock Marketing in north central Missouri, up in the Green Hills of Missouri. On Tuesday, the 22nd, here today, they've got a yearling special. Now, they're not going to have 150 pot loads, but they'll have several nice yearlings in there, and there'll be more northern quality type cattle there. Here today, Green City Livestock Marketing on dvauction.com. And then on Friday, they're going to come in with their calf special on the 25th, right after Thanksgiving. They've done that for many, many years, and I've been to many of those sales before. Also, a market that always has specials right around Thanksgiving is Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska. You can also view and bid those cattle at dvauction.com. But they've got a special on Friday, the 25th, calves and yearlings both. So check those out. But big sales. I mean, we come right in here after your cattle and feed report. The board was up good. It was up a little more right there to start out with in the morning, but still hung in there pretty good. We've got aggressive packers. We've got a higher fat cattle market this week, wrapped up from last week. Everything is kind of coming up roses here as we get into the holiday season, and we are just getting at the early stages of it, guys. This is going to last for a good while. Now, if you decide you just now want to get in on it, it's going to cost you a lot to get in. Of course, your inputs are high and everything else, but it's a good time to be in the cattle business, commercial cattle business right now, for the next 3 and maybe possibly 4 years. But let's look at your board to start the week out Monday. On the Monday after a bullish cattle on feed report that come out on Friday afternoon, December live cattle futures up 47 cents. And you think, damn, they ought to be better than that. Well, the cattle on feed report is not really for your spot live cattle contract. It's more for your feeder cattle contracts and your out front live cattle contracts, and it responded exactly the way it's supposed to. December live cattle futures up 47 cents at 153.55. February up 87 cents at 156.72. And then your back months were up more, up 47 cents to up $1.17 on live cattle contracts. Feeder cattle contracts, January was up $1.85 at 182.62. March up 197 at 185.10. Back months on feeder cattle up $1.20 to up 195. Chicago Board of Trade corn was down 8 1/4 cents. That didn't hurt the feeder cattle any either. At 659 1/2 to end regular trading on Monday. Beans, January was up 8 1/2 cents. It's gotten back to being real volatile again at 1436 3/4. Your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade out of your 5-area feeding region, pure negotiated sales in the 5-area, 74,200 head compared to 81,300 the previous week and 99,800 head the same week a year ago. Live sales of steers and heifers steady to $1 higher from 148 to 156. But what was the main deal in there was in the southern plains, you know, they'd sold about half of them in Texas at steady 150, and then all of a sudden your packers decide to give the southern feedlots $2 extra. Kansas hadn't got that when they started trading, and it helped them. It helped them get a few more cattle bought, your packers. But that $2 within that range higher in the southern plains is what made it higher. Northern plains had some stick out sales on the top end of better grading cattle too. But from 148 to 156 was your price range on live sales in the 5-area. Your weighted average on live steers 152.89, just 18 cents higher than the previous week, but still higher. And the big deal was that $2 extra in the southern plains at 152. Dress sales were steady to $1 lower, but they ended up being higher on the weighted average. Had a big range again from 236 to 244, but it was mostly 242 to 244. And your weighted average on dress steers was 241.79. That was 45 cents higher than the previous week's weighted average, and pretty good gains there. Nationwide negotiated sales 90,600 head. About 17% of those are for the 15 to 30 day delivery, and that's on the lighter side, so that's not a big issue. They're not being able to get cattle bought out front 2 to 4 weeks to try to set the market up for a fall. Not yet anyway. But 90,600 pure negotiated, 43,300 negotiated grid, 23,000 forward contracts, but formula sales 266,800 head. That's where they get the bulk of their supply. But box beef cutout values were higher on Monday. They were lower last week, but higher on Monday. 255.57 on choice cuts. That's up 70 cents. Selects up 40 cents at 233.23. Had a good slaughter on Monday to start the week out at 128,000. Talk about what else is going on. The Night Latch Group is a crop insurance and LRP specialist. It's Andy Cunningham in Western Oklahoma. He wants to let you guys know he's out there to help you out with your crop insurance, your LRPs. But more importantly, he wants to explain to you and show you the value of LGMs. And you think, what's LGM? That's livestock gross margin. It's the same type of policy as the LRPs. It's supplemented by the USDA. They'll come in there and pay a good percentage of your premium. It can be your primary or a complement risk management tool. But you can manage your cattle and corn risk in one convenient policy there. And Andy Cunningham has researched this, been using it, knows how it can work, and can explain it to you. Get a hold of him at thenightlatch.net. Talk about your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index on DV auction. Late in the day on Monday, setting at 174.65. That was up 20 cents from the end of last week's trade. Talk about your big sales on Monday. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City. 8,950 head of feeder cattle, pretty good run for them. Feeder steers were steady to $2 higher. Feeder heifers were mostly steady. Calves $3 to $6 higher. Stick-out sale in Oklahoma City was through National Livestock. They sold 106 head of 598-pound steers, or same as 600-pound steers, at 191. Pretty impressive there. But your Zoetta stick-out sale of the day was Joplin Regional Stockyards. 11,900 head. It was mostly yearlings. They had some calves in the run too, but mostly yearlings. And feeder steers were steady to $3 higher. Feeder heifers steady to $4 higher. You look at this automated market report and you look out at the right side, those are comparisons on your weighted averages compared to last week's sale, which it was a good test also. But you can see they're mostly all sharply higher except for the real peewees. But where they had the best tested market there, watch with me and see what the market is, guys. This is what the market was on Monday in Joplin on yearling feeder cattle. How about 1,711 head of 7-weight steers in Joplin? They averaged 749 with a weighted average price of $176.02. That was $2 higher straight up on your weighted average, and when you got a good test, you can trust that market trend. Gaining that much ground, that's pretty good. How about 2,351 head of 8-weight steers in Joplin, average 841 with a weighted average price of $176.49. It's straight up $3 higher than last week on your weighted average. About 1,200 head of 9-weight steers in Joplin, average 933, the weighted average price of $169.97. These ain't on all perfect cattle. These are on commodity type cattle included, but that'd be steady to $1 higher. Look at your heifers. On the yearling heifers, 1,078 head of 7-weight yearling heifer quotes there, average 744 or 747, excuse me, with a weighted average price of $165.69. That'd be $7 higher on your weighted average there. A couple of stick out deals. How about the biggest string they had in Joplin on Monday? 457 head in one whack, weighed 827. They were put together blacks, but I mean be on the pretty fancy end of commodity type cattle there, but 457 of them, average 827 pounds at 181. Yes, that's not just reserved for Nebraska guys. How about the Neidert Kennedy steers there? Load of them, 55 of those, weighed 879 at 181.50, weighing that close to 9 guys. And those boys, they facilitated a lot of grazing and backgrounding there over the fall here. But give you some other individual quotes around the circuit. How about Callaway Livestock Center in Kingdom City, Missouri? My buddy Jack Harrison there sold 150 steers, weighed 676 at 197.25. That'd be a pretty impressive quote. About a market that we don't talk about very often, and the seller was proud of it, and he gave me the heads up on this, but I also have another way to get these quotes. But Daniel Ferrari, he had a lot of cattle for sale there at Western Oklahoma Livestock Auction. That's outside Clinton, Oklahoma, right on I-40 there. You guys have been by it, may not have stopped yet, but he sold several cattle at Clinton there on Monday, including this string, 159 steer calves. They was bought weighing in the 2s, and he just kind of backgrounded them and didn't push them. 159 of them weighed 453, colored up pretty good, but good healthy calves. Bring $2.40 a pound in Clinton, Oklahoma, guys, at Western Oklahoma Livestock. Big time quote there, and congratulations to Daniel. How about Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota? That's a DV auction barn there. 304 head of steers, weighed 1,072 pounds at 172.75. Wow. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Monday, your Mackerson, no BS, top quote for the day, indeed come from Joplin Regional Stockyards. 65 steers, weighed 852, bring $1.86 a pound. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.